get the audacity happening. Ooh, we're right on 11,000. Okay, we have got show 57 underway. And
11,000 views on the Apostolic Letter, is it?
Yes, right on. This is, I've been, as you know, I've become a Twitter head.
I'll tell you what, it works, doesn't it?
It does work. That's the only way to get anything read is send it by Twitter. It's instant and, you know, it takes a minute, so people do. But right now we are looking at the Roman Pontiff Emeritus Benedict XVI Apostolic Letter signed, and it has exactly 11,000 views. From yesterday morning, it has risen 174.
Do a snapshot of that.
That's because I have been tweeting regional newspapers, etc., throughout before we went to bed last night, and just saying that mainstream media refuses to announce the second coming with the link to the Apostolic Letter. That's it, that's the one I'm looking for, thank you. All right.
Ironically, while she's tweeting the different newspapers throughout New South Wales, she got to the Mercury.
Lithgow Mercury.
And that is where my ex-wife worked. Now, I don't know whether she's still there or not, probably isn't because she's 72 years old. But
and then immediately after that, because I'd been tweeting for some time to the newspapers, a list, and immediately after that it came up I went for about another 10, 403 error, you have no, it was like not having a security clearance. Well, you couldn't
get on the Mercury in Lithgow, right?
No, I did that. That was the last one I did.
Oh,
yes.
Right, it's even better.
It's the last one I did, and then, but what it was is spam protection. When I clicked here, they had red flagged me thinking I was spam, so I'll go back later this evening and continue with all the regional newspapers. Will anybody pick it up? I tell you what, it's the world is going to hell in a handbasket, as all of you know.
Well, you'd think that a newspaper that isn't owned by Rupert Murdoch would know that Rupert Murdoch is an arsehole, and that all the big newspapers are, and that the truth is something that is not allowed to be printed. We spoke to a fellow in one of the big stores here in Hervey Bay. Well, Hervey Bay is just a small place, really. And there's this guy that made his fortune in flogging drugs and then went into the business of selling furniture and computers and all sorts of appliances. And he's become a billionaire right throughout Australia, one of the big corporations. Right?
This is Harvey Norman, everybody that...
They call him Hardly
Normal.
But, from very good sources, because we know people who were in Melbourne in the old days when the Crims were really going strong. And he was one of the big people in with the police, and he imported all sorts of drugs. And anyhow, of course, he makes himself out to be a self-made businessman, which he is, on illegal means. However, we're talking in this, walked in to look at something, and there was a radio fellow there who was going to do a show. And he made it quite clear that the radio is sanctioned by the government. You can't tell the truth. So the same seems to apply to all newspapers, and if in particular that you're carrying, let's say, advertising for a large corporation like Harvey Normal, call him Harvey Norman, they cut funding. Now, when we was in Nimbin, this is the marijuana capital of Australia, we was invited to go on to a radio show there, and I had no idea that we'd be talking to a man that is actually channeling, and he's supposed to be the Queen.
No, goddess.
Goddess.
I know, you can't remember the details.
Well, I had no idea this clown was going to be there. He's sort of a not a bad looking fellow, a man of probably 10 years younger than I, but a handsome sort of a fellow. His son is a school teacher.
Totally embarrassed by it.
Totally embarrassed by this
according
idiot
to Dianna.
And we start the interview, and of course I had no idea that this clown was going to be there. And we'd had a cookie the night before, and this friend of ours, one of my followers.
No, it was that morning. He brought it around that morning.
Well, he brought this cookie around, right, to chew on, right? And apparently it had hash in it. So she starts eating this thing, right?
I had the smallest amount because he brought it around, and I've never ever tasted hash.
This is the hash and the marijuana capital of Australia.
Oh God! Anyway.
So she had no idea, right? So she's munching on this thing because she likes having cookies and dunking me in the coffee.
I had a very small amount, not knowing what would happen to me.
So we get on the radio
sensitive
program,
to.
and I'm waiting for her to launch because she does all the talking, right?
Well, I knew before we left the
Well,
house.
as it turns out, the fellow who is the mayor of Nimbin is a nice fellow, and he's on the show on a regular basis with this idiot goddess, right? And of course, they've got a normal sort of a fellow that's doing the interviewing, the radio host. So he starts talking to me, and he's asking questions about what's going to happen in the future, because it's already all over town who I am, right? So he thought it was interesting to get me. Oh, Diana's relentless. She's like a dog with a bone. And next thing, this guy starts yapping on, and he's making sort of strange statements, and I'm waiting for her to kick in, right? Because I have no idea who this clown is, right? And she can't talk.
How did you know? My brain was very active.
So anyhow, after the show, I was looking for about 10 kilos of these cookies to take with me, so I shut her up.
No, it was all perfect the way it should have been, because it just demonstrated what a fuckwit this guy was. I'm so glad we've got the explicit button on our radio program as a warning. Yeah, so Clayfeet brought around the cookie, and I had the smallest amount of this cookie, and sure enough, I'm having this reaction where my mind is in perfect order, but I know I cannot speak. Now, I had already read the program of the radio station, so I knew that this idiot called Goddess was going to be channeling some entity while they have Almighty God in the same studio. So I haven't been able to warn Brian, and I'm just mute all the way there, and I'm sitting listening to this fuckwit. In my mind, I want to punch his lights out, because he was being challenging, and oh Yahweh, you always were so cranky. Like, you know, this is the bullshit dogma of the deluded, devoured, walking dead, called the New Age movement, and every other fuckwit out there who believes that Yahweh the Creator.
You see, I've been asked sensible questions by the mayor.
Yes.
And I was deep in thought, not really listening to this other clown.
Well, you weren't hearing him. No, you had no idea. So you were just...
So he just sort of mumbling on. He's got his own microphone on the other side of the room. And I didn't hear actually what he was saying.
Yes, and I'm being restrained because I can't speak. I tell you what, had I been able to launch at him, that would have been a Butte missile that would have split him open. I tell you. It would have been a showdown. Well, they would have shut the radio down.
Getting to the point, the radio station was called shortly after this, and they said that if they have this man on again, naming me, that they will pull the licence.
Shut the radio station
and shut the radio station down. Now that's what we're up against. So we're dealing with a negative phenomenon, and I have always been able to make progress by using a negative reaction. My former wife Pauline was a brilliant negative Geiger counter, and if I was to say we'll go there, she'll say no, she doesn't want to. So to get her to go somewhere, I'd say I don't want to go there, and she would go there. That's the kind of person she was. It was always the negative, and I could read her like a book, because she was mentally ill and paranoid schizophrenic as well. So it became a very, very interesting situation in Port Alberni when we had returned there, because this was the same time I was there with Kevin Arnett. Kevin Arnett was a minister for the church, but of course he's a Jesuit, and Jesuits infiltrate into churches and everything else. They're basically Jews. So I was there at the same time between was it 91 or 1990 to 1995 when I left to come back to Australia. It was at 96 I come back to Australia. And all the time that I was there, I was in court, in and out, and all sorts of strange things were happening. And I actually went to trial for uttering a death threat to my former wife. Well, she was my wife at the time. Now, what had happened, I had a very serious back injury when I was in 1974. And they tried to poison me with this dye they put in my back, which was later banned. It causes people to go insane with pain.
It's called arachnoiditis.
Arachnoiditis. What happens, you get a myelogram, it puts a needle in your back, and it's not a very pleasant experience. To see what the damage is by a X-ray looks at your back, and where this dye has sort of gone down your spine, it shapes around the injury part. Although it doesn't show the injury, it shows the dent that might be coming in from the disc that's been damaged or protruding or whatever the case may be. So they didn't take it out. Now the idea was that this would kill me quick smart, because when they take the dye out of people, they found that if you put say 15 or 16 cc's in your back and they take it all out, then the person will start to develop extreme agony in the nerves would all, and you've got millions of them, they would all fuse together and short out. So this just sends pain up to the pain receptors up to your brain, as if every nerve has been crushed. And that is extraordinary, right? Well, they didn't take any of this dye out with me, and years later, in 1991, my back has still been playing up, because when they did operate on me, they took the wrong disc out, they took the healthy one out. So they did that on purpose, they left the crushed disc in. So over the years, it had actually started to granulate and form little chunks of gristle that was floating up and around my spine. So the pain was dreadful. So I had to have an MRI, which is a magnetic resonance. It's about 30,000 times the magnetic field of the Earth, apparently. So they're going to put me in this machine, but because it's such a high magnetic field, they have to take X-rays of your eyes, and they call that X-raying the orbits, which is the roundness of your eye, I guess, and to see if there's anything that's in there from a grinder, a bit of metal, because if the MRI, as you go through it, you go entirely through it, your head is in the MRI as well, the magnetic field can pull the ion filings into your brain. So the guy who was doing the X-ray said to me, "Have you had a myelogram recently?" I said, "Yeah, well, 25 years ago, I could catch my bed." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, I can see all the dye that's throughout your brain and your optic nerves and up your spine and all over the place." So I told him what had happened, and the guy, he went white. He said, "This stuff is deadly. It should have been removed completely," and was later banned because people were dying from it in agony. So that's how the situation started to develop. So I wasn't overly concerned about it. I thought, well, being who I am, it doesn't really matter. Just another time they tried to kill me, right? But at least this time of the operation, they got the disc out. And in hospital, I said to them, I want no drugs. Right? When I had the operation, when I wake up, I don't want no drugs. So when I wake up, they got me on morphine. So I immediately ripped it out and got up and walked out the hospital. So I was awake for about 20 seconds, seen the drip in my arm and my hand. I pulled that out. The nurses come in all horrified that you've got to leave this stuff in and ease off it slowly because it is a powerful drug. And I said, "Yeah, well, I'm out of here," right? So I got up and left. Well, this doesn't happen. You have a back operation, people don't get up and walk immediately. Well, I got up and within 20 minutes I'm getting dressed to leave. So this is the situation. So while I was away, my ex-wife had, well, she was my wife at the time, she'd taken all the money out. I had $40,000 in the bank from the properties I'd sold in Australia. And she stole it and took off, transferred the money to her account that she had set up before we come over to Australia, from Australia. And the money had been transferred. So when I get out of the hospital, I see that she's gone and the bloody money's gone. So I then go into the bank to find out where the money's gone to. They tell me, so I then forge her signature and send it to her bank that I'm not coming to Australia now, because she's only been 2 days away, right, while I'm in hospital. And would you please just send the money back to my account? And of course it came back. When she's in Melbourne, where the account was, she walks into the bank. There's a big, huge sergeant of police in the bank. And she walks in and finds that the money has now disappeared. So then she starts arguing with the teller that the money is gone, right? It's been stolen out of her account. Where is it? So then they produced this fax that I'd sent over with her signature on it, saying that she was going back to Canada. She said, well, I'm standing here in front of you. Of course, this big policeman's looking on over her shoulder, what the hell's going on, because there's obviously some sort of bank fraud happening, right? So she starts to pack the shits. And as it turns out, I got the money back and she didn't. So then was a begging letter come in from her sister saying that she is repentant and she wants to come back. So because she was such a negative Geiger counter, she was ideal to have around. So when she comes back, then the business of moving from where we had this farm, because the $40,000 was I'd sent back to Australia as a shipload of wood, and then my brother, who was a lunatic, he didn't do what I asked, and I ended up losing that. So I talk about a comedy of errors. So we end up moving out from the property that was in over to Port Alberni, and this is where Kevin Arnett, the man who has been trying to screw the Pope all the way through, right? And the Queen, charged with child molesting and all this kind of stuff, right? Which is just
child sacrifice.
Child sacrifice and all a complete lie. So we end up back in Port Alberni, and of course then Pauline realises, because I said the money that's coming to me from this Workers' Compensation Board was such a large amount they had to have 2 accountants to write the cheque out. It was a joke, right? I had no intention of getting money because I wanted to get an old age pension out of it, plus my injury pension, which gives me enough money today to just survive. Right? So with the injury pension, which is the lowest possible amount of money, it's only very, very small. But I had bullshitted her and thinking there was going to be a huge amount of money. Well, when she found out, then she turned on me and she had me charged with uttering a death threat. The idea is that fear him that can kill both body and soul in hell, and you're in hell. So I'm saying to her, it's either start telling the truth of the miracles you've seen to everybody and support me, but no, she's got to go the other way and act that I'm the lunatic and Satan himself, because she wanted this money, and she had me arrested. And while I'm arrested, I go into jail for 4 days because the court, this is over Christmas, the court was closed, and the jail and the witnesses that would have been for me, which would have been the psychiatrist, Dr. Helen I'd gone to say, listen, I've got a problem here. I've got so much information that I could start a religion, which I don't want to do. But I am the most royal person. It does look like that it's me has been talked about in the prophecies. So therefore, and he was a smart man. I said, now what you should do is get your university buddies around who has got some common sense, and just to see what the phenomena is. I'd done things like driven through Waco in Texas, and just after I leave there, that's when this business of Waco gets attacked and they burn everybody to death, right? Because they're all very concerned and they know exactly who I am. So everywhere I go I've been followed. So I'm now arrested. I'm spending 4 days in jail. They don't turn the bloody lights off. And I'm singing to all the inmates, right? And all the police there sort of got to know me because of what the rumours were going on through the Indians that I was friendly with. That I was building a boat out the lake, and it was called the Jesus boat and all this kind of stuff. So as it turns out, I go into the court after 4 days, and because I'm going to say nothing, right? I've been charged with uttering a death threat. In the meantime, she's been going to the court as soon as it opens, down in a place called Nanaimo, to see if she could get the money that was coming to me from the Workers' Compensation Board, because she thinks it's a huge amount, right? I'm talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, she thought it was. No, it's only a few bucks. Right? Anyhow, she got a court order that I had to give her this money because I was a lunatic being locked up. I'm going to be locked up in a lunatic asylum. And she wanted a power of attorney, and she got it. But the law in Canada is that with workers' compensation, that no one can take that money, no matter what it is, whether it's a small pension or whether it's a cash amount. A wife, mother, children cannot take it under any circumstances. It's above the actual Canadian law. So I already knew that. So I just played with it. But as it turns out, I have to go to court. So I'm standing in the court. Now, I never said to Dr. Helen that I was Christ or anything like it. I just said, this is what the pyramid is, this is what the numbers are, I am the most royal person, I challenged the bloody Queen to get her ass off the throne, etc. And he thought it was all very amusing. But he also said that I was the most intelligent man that he ever met. So he did do that. He got his friends together. So I'm standing in court, hadn't mentioned anything about being Christ, and a letter comes in from Dr. Helen to the court. And the letter says, this man believes he is Christ and there's no cure for it. So that's it, into the lunatic asylum, right? And that's where I spent 40 days in the forensic. And what they do over there at the institute, this is run by the RCMP police. When you go in there, they put you on the third floor with all the lunatics. And one guy had actually chopped his mother up and ate her. So they're nice people. This is the kind of people we're in the same bloody ward with, right? On the third floor with all the lunatics. And you get assessed, and people come in, psychiatrists posing as patients, and they make friends with you to see what you're all about. Well, this is what happened. So this fellow, Doc Hansen, he called himself, he was a Jew, in the third bed along from me, and he starts to become friendly with me, and he sort of wants to know what you're in here for. And I said, well, as it turns out, I went to court for uttering a death threat to my wife, and the psychiatrist said that I said I was Christ, and I didn't say that. Right? But he assumed that. And there's no cure for it. So I said, you're a Jew, aren't you? And he said, yeah. I said, oh, really? I said, where was you born? He said, the Prince of Wales Island. I said, really? I said, yeah. I said, what was your mother? He said, an Inuit, which is an Eskimo. So I said, right. So I said, well, as you was born on the Prince of Wales Island, and as your mother was dipping water out of the lake there from the time you were a baby, you would know the name of the lake. And he sort of stared at me and he said, I don't know. I said, well, I wasn't born there and I know what the name was. So you also know then the distance from the equator in miles to the centre of the island. And he looked at me again. No, I don't know that either. I said, well, I know, and I wasn't born there. I told him. I said, you'd also know the area of the island in square kilometres. Obviously, if you're born there all your life, you know a little bit about the place. No, don't know that either. I said, well, I know, and I wasn't born there. I said, well, here's an easy one for you. If you allowing for the Earth being tilted at the axis at 23.5 degrees, then you'd know that if you drove a laser beam through the island, where it would come out on the other side of the Earth, and how long that penetration through the Earth would be in miles. Well, like, he said, no, I don't know either. And I said, I do. I said, 7,777.7 nautical miles. I said, every 3-year-old knows that. It comes from Prince of Wales Island. So he said to me, I've got an IQ of 182 and you've outsmarted me in one question. And I said, well, if you want to tell me what you're all about, come back and talk to me, otherwise fuck off. So he disappeared for a couple of days, then he came back in and he said to me, he said, well, I'm a psychiatrist, been sent in to test you. I said, well, you're not doing a very good job. But to see, that all comes from measuring the Earth, and by measuring the Earth I mean that you take New Zealand, for example, from the lowest extremity to the highest extremity, the latitudes are 888 miles apart, and that of course is Jesus in Greek geometry. Well, it was myself way back in the 1990s that revived the gematria art, because by the time you get onto the internet, these things didn't exist. Maybe scholars knew, but the general population had no idea what gematria of Greek and Hebrew was. And as it turns out, in Prince of Wales Island, the Hebrew alphabet has a gematria of 4995, and that's how many miles it is to the Prince of Wales Island, and the area of it is 33,333 square kilometres. Right? So this is the kind of thing that I had been doing for a very long time, ever since I was a child, measuring and recording as best I could with sometimes inaccurate means of doing so, like an atlas sometimes can give an approximate idea, but to work out things like the area of an island, it takes some doing, which I was quite proficient at. And so I'd measured all these islands, and there's thousands of them, and the Prince of Wales Island and so forth. But by mentioning the Prince of Wales Island, it tipped his hand, because my computers, and I had 16 of them, were all chocker with various programs that I used for doing these calculations, and the focus of one of North America is the Prince of Wales Island, because it is in the centre of the continent itself. So I focused on that as being one that being large enough, and of course had the Prince of Wales, which is very horrifying because this is the beast. So they name everything after their beast children, which was in this case, the Prince of Wales was always the Prince Charles, and then his son would be the Prince of Wales after him, because the Prince of Wales becomes the king. So that's what that was all about. So Pauline, really as a negative Geiger counter, because of her lust and greed, was quite prepared to put me into an insane asylum, which is a forensic institute, and you can stay there forever. So when I finally got out after 40 days, the reason they was letting me out is because I was curing all the patients. And basically, a person who gets in there is very frustrated. One guy, poor guy, had recently hung himself on a pipe that runs through, like they leave pipes up and people can hang themselves with tearing off a sheet and making a rope out of it. This is the kind of thing they do. So there's a total, no compassion in the psychiatry at all. And the people that were my psychiatrist was a Jew and a Hindi. Hello. So I was in there for good as far as Pauline was concerned. But then again, I started curing people. And the basic way I started curing people was these people are frustrated because they're locked up, they can't get out, and the psychiatrist won't believe what they say. And I said, just shut your mouth and take your pet pills and don't argue with the psychiatrist, because you've got to play their game. So there were several people, though I was emptying the place with these patients, that some of them are pretty serious. Right? I said, but you've got to look at it from the point of view you're dealing with the devil. So although you have these righteous thoughts, it don't make no damn difference to a psychiatrist. Right? So this is how I got to the point where they had to get rid of me because I was curing too many people. The very first person I met out as I got out on that day, heading back for the Vancouver Island, was a man and his wife, and they had come out from Scotland, and so I'm waiting around for the bus to go to the ferry, and I got talking to this lady, or she got talking to me, and it turns out their name is Golightly. I thought, hello, we're set up again. So this is how the depth of what they go to. So I had already proven to them who I was the moment I was born, because of the latitude, longitude, and so forth. So what we've been doing recently is with these programs that were removed from my computers, and then I was able to get another one off an old CD I had, which had the computer program on it. It's called Home Planet, and that'll give you the precise locations of the moon at any given time, back and forwards in time, hundreds of years. thousands of years. So I was able to plot the position of the sun and the moon on various dates, and in particular, date of conception. I was there at the time, so I remember it. The date of birth, of course, the sun and the moon. And this, what we've been doing as a PowerPoint I've been putting together is quite extraordinary, because there's a man a pilot, a very educated man in the practical sense. He didn't go to university because he knew if he had the bullshit they teach you in universities, he would never have been able to do the math to work out what he did. And that was the position of the moon and the sun, but he primarily was leading the CIA down a trail because he had started doing seminars saying that you cannot have a nuclear war, because in order for the bombs to be detonated, and this is a test run over Nagasaki and Hiroshima, was at a point in time where the sun, he's saying, has to be at a certain angle, and that the latitude had to be precise, the bomb run had to be exactly right. It took 9 months of preparing pilots bombing from 30,000 feet to hit a 300 foot, that's 100 metres, for you, anyone who thinks in metres. From 30,000 feet, they was practising every day for 9 months with the best bombardiers that the American Army and Air Force could produce. So he said it had to be exactly done at the exact moment when the sun is at this angle and blah, blah, blah. Well, he was offered a job by the CIA and he refused the job because he says that what they do is they offer you a job, pick your brain and then kill you, which is what's happened to a man called Stanley Meyer, who invented the way of producing water. They could run a vehicle across from Los Angeles to New York on 40 gallons of water. So they got rid of him by offering him a job. He went for the Pentagon and he was poisoned the same day. And he died. So they got all this information how to run vehicles for nothing. And the point being is they don't want energy for free. They want to be able to charge you for it. This goes back to Tesla, why he was closed down, right, by JP Morgan, because they couldn't put a meter on the power that he's going to produce from the atmosphere. All right, so what happens is this. He comes along and he says they can't have a nuclear blast and according to the sun and this angle. So I'm looking at his drawings and I've got the latest of my studies through the various astronomy programs I've got. And it shows that the sun in the position where he's saying it was for Hiroshima and Nagasaki was out. Nothing, nowhere near it. However, the moon was. So Hiroshima was a plutonium bomb and Nagasaki was a uranium bomb. Now, they detonated both. However, when I looked at this man's drawings and the positions of the sun that he was talking about, and it's all over the internet, I said, no, he's too smart. What he's giving you is how to do the calculations. So I then did the calculations on the moon for Nagasaki. Turns out that the position of the moon spells it out. It gives you, from Nagasaki to the moon to where I was born, it gives you all sorts of wonderful information, which is, I haven't got the drawings in front of me at the moment to go into great details about it, but the age of the moon, what you have is a new moon, full moon, back to a new moon again. You've got a cycle 29.5352 days. And the age of the moon on any given date is expressed in days. Right? So, at the point of impact, and it was difficult to find the point of impact, and it was also difficult to find the exact time that it was detonated. So Joel, he looked and searched, I looked and searched, I couldn't find it. I eventually came up with it one time at 8:15, which was wrong, and then Joel eventually found it, and it was 11:02. So that's in Japanese time. It's 9 plus 9 hours from Greenwich Mean Time. And the age of the moon was 1 day, 1 hour, 11 minutes, 11 seconds, and the moon was 1% full. So what you got is 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 all the way through. Now the 111, according to the Satanists, which is what they are, is one of their satanic numbers. And I'm actually born on that date, right? 111. Right, hello. So what they've done is taken numbers that are specific to the Earth, and I'll give an example of that. If you use Google Earth, it's always wrong. It's all right for a very, very short distance, say 100, maybe 100 kilometres, something like that. Anything over that, it starts to go out. And what they did was, when they set up Washington, they built a square with the architects of 10 square miles. The reason for that, the Great Pyramid is 36524.24, which represents 100 years. So synchronistically, they got 100 and 100, right? 100 for the pyramid in years, and then you got 10 by 10, right, miles for Washington. But when they did it, their estimate of distances was slightly out. It was probably caused by the Potomac River. But the distance they tried to put into in the Google Earth is 5,813 miles, or is it nautical miles, one or the other, to the Great Pyramid from the centre of Washington, from the White House. And that's the height of your pyramid in pyramid inches when it's with the capstone in place. So what they're saying is the American White House is the capstone of the Great Pyramid, because that's missing, been rejected. And that's also in this PowerPoint that I'm doing, which you should have a look at it when we get it up. It'll probably be up there tomorrow. And it is very, very detailed in showing how the measurement of the Earth proves who the Lord Almighty is. Because think of it this way. The Creator creates the Earth and everything in the universe by a thought process. It's a hologram, right? That's manifest by the mind of the soul that is part of the image that you were made in the image of God. So your soul is in the image of God. That's why the Jesus figure is the soul of Yahweh, predicted by the Hindi, which was the Vedas 4,500 years ago, that Yahweh, not Yahweh, Yahweh, that's how they spelled it, Jehovah, that's where the name Jehovah comes from the Hindi, would be born to the earth as the son that would be crucified, blah, 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 in the story of the New Testament. So this is where the Egyptians, knowing the Hindis, built up the ISIS bullshit of having the virgin birth and all this kind of stuff. So they say, oh, the Egyptians are older than the Jesus, so therefore Jesus' idea came from the Egyptians. Bullshit. It's the other way around. They've stolen it from the Hindi, which was passed on by the Essenes. The oldest religion is Essene. Enoch is an Essene. Why? He ascended to God, 365, and it's 0.2424 years old, and didn't die. Of course, the Lord took him, right? So that's your base measure of the pyramid, 365, 24, 0.24. Right? So it's the same number, solar year. So his son Methuselah, he lived 969 years. Then his son Lamech lived 777 years. And his son, of course, was Noah. And then you've got the story of Noah, how old he was when his sons were born, how old Lamech was when Noah was born, how old Methuselah was when Lamech was born, how old Enoch would have been, had he remained, be able to get a complete record, but he was only 160 odd years old when Methuselah was born, and on it goes. So these were built, and it lines up with the Nibiru that is in the skies that we've been taking photographs of. And we know we're right because we now have these smartphones that you can download an app and you can point it up in the sky, and there's Mars, yeah, there's the constellation, there's the satellites going over, you point it at the Nibiru Katrina, is it not Katrina? Kachina, Hopi prophecies of the two, the red and the blue planets, which we're looking and taking photographs of. They're not there on the smartphone. So therefore, they're new to the solar system. That's a bit of a hello. I would say. So I go into my computer, and because the computer's online, and by the way, when you buy a computer, it's immediately you switch it on, it's hooked into the spy agencies. Immediately. There's not a computer that's manufactured that is not backdoored by the spy people. And I know this has been happening for years with my computers because I put stuff in there as a trap, and sure enough, it disappears. So as I go in to find the movies that we've done, and still shots of these two new planets that are sparkling blue and red, and most magnificent thing in the southern hemisphere that you've seen. So you'd describe it as what? Well, actually, when I look at it with as you get older, you get sort of long vision. And I look at these things with the naked eye, and I'm saying, hey, at 8 o'clock there's a bloody little moon going around it. Right? And you've seen the same thing. We've also seen a similar phenomenon when it was in Italy, in Rome. So you sort of wipe your eyes and have another look. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? And of course we agree that we're seeing the same thing. So it appears that these have a moon, or maybe many moons, accompanying them as they're coming back in. And this is the prophecy of the Hopi. Now the prophecy of the Hopi is not something to be laughed at or scorned, because they have a stone that was given to them by the angel figure representing Jesus, right? And also was given, the very same thing was given to the Africans. It was also given to the Asians, the monks, and it was also given to the Swiss. And these four plaques are identical. So as it's going back a very, very long period of time, up to 2,000 years or something like that, when the Hopi got the information, the prophecies of the Hopi are astounding in the sense that they knew about what was going to come. The steel railroad that's going to go right across the country, and all the highways is going to be built by the white man that hadn't come there at that time. They were talking 2,000 bloody years ago, or whatever it was. But you have these four plaques that are, three they have. I think the African one has disappeared. But it may be hidden somewhere, you don't know. But the point is, it proves that this figure who appeared to them was the same figure that appeared to the ancients in India, who were describing a white man with blue eyes. This is not a common feature in the native Indians, nor is it a common feature in the Mayans, which also describe the same type of thing, the Kukulkan, tall white man with blue eyes, silver hair. And all these prophecies of these different traditions have to come to pass. What we've done, we've got the Mayanettes taken care of, the Kukulkans taken care of, the Hopi Indians were taken care of, and now these planets are coming back in under the 3,637 year cycle of the Nibiru planet, which they're talking about as being these aliens, whatever they call them. Right? It's all bullshit. But you go back to 3,600 year periods, and prior to that, when the angels moved all these gigantic monuments, some weighing well over 1,000 tons, and lifting them and placing them in walls that were later built into Roman temples. And they got this huge 140 or 1,400 ton shaped blocks that are in Lebanon. And they're fitted together, carried from the quarry, 5 kilometres or so, and fitted together up on a wall where, say, it looks this big and there's a man that big. And you can't put a playing card in between the joints. That's how precise these things are. Go around the world, there's thousands of these, and of course, even to the point of there were giants in those days. Now, when we look at the facts, we have giant animals, dinosaurs and so forth, but we also have, and many people, one guy is called Childers in America, who has all the records and newspapers of giants that would have been found all throughout in North America. and native legends about talking about the giants, red-haired giants and so forth. Now, there were giants before the flood. So, how did this come about? Well, when you're dealing with the Earth, the centre of the Earth is an iron core. If you didn't have an iron core, you wouldn't have the magnetic fields. And the movement of the magma past this gigantic magnetic field creates gravity. Now, it is subject to pouring in from the centre of it from another realm. There's only 2 dimensions, not 14 as they're trying to bullshit you. There's 2, right? And what happens? You've got the heavenly dimension. Within that is the material world and what we perceive as materialism. In fact, we're made up of electrical charges and magnetic fields that the atoms, if you like, are so far apart would be likened to the sun and Jupiter. So our body is made up of atoms that are like a mini solar system, and because of the negative of the electron that's spinning around it, repels other electrons that are negatives, because like poles repel. So the atoms of your body is made up, or everything in around you is made up of these fields, which is controlled by your soul. So your DNA is working at this fantastic rate up to 100 trillion cells, and instantly making new cells. You go and scratch your backside, and then a little DNA will unwind. The RNA is then stripped off it, and that makes a molecule, and amino acids are brought to by invisible things, and they assemble a long string into 400-part amino acid to make a protein, and it's taken out, and something moves it, invisible, into a little cylinder with a flap on the end of it. We're talking microscopic here, they can hardly see it. And the thing opens up, and this 400-part amino acid goes in, and it's folded up to make a molecule, and goes and sticks it on your ass where you just scratch it. You don't know what's happening, but the soul is what drives all this. So when you drop dead, fear him that can kill both body and soul in hell. You're in hell. Fear him, me. So, this is what you Jews had better get through your thick skulls, right? Because you're going to be out of here, and you're going to a hell that you cannot imagine. For vengeance. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. It's somewhere in the Bible. But I'm telling you, that's how I think, right? I'm going to get even with you bastards. So watch out. Be very careful. All right, now, we've got this nuclear thing. Doesn't harm you at all. There's a guy that is in America, Winton his name is, and he was charged with designing facilities for storing nuclear rods after they started to build their reactors. Now the idea is that if you convince the world, it will happen, because it's called, you are made, your soul is in the image of God. So therefore, if you think collectively the same thing, you will have a war, or you'll have peace. So the TV, the internet, the radios, the newspapers are all dominated by the Jews. So therefore, what they want you to think, they keep on pumping it out into you. And it's also on the internet, of course. So we've got people like Lorraine Murray. She makes a living about stirring people's fears on what nuclear radiation will do to you. This fellow, who was the chief designer for handling the nuclear waste, was told that the regulations of how many exposures you can have in a given period of time has been increased, and it keeps on increasing, and he keeps on saying to them, it's harmless. He swims in these big pools where you've got the reactor happening. He swims in the water. Right? He drinks it. He said it's harmless. So he went on tour after 35 years in the business of designing all these things, which were, at that time, his recommendations were never taken on board, because he said, not only is it harmless, but it is such a wonderful power source that you can have nuclear reactors, mini nuclear reactors in your house. Or you could have them in the suburb, or each factory could have one, and you'd have no problem with power. And what that happens is 88% in some cases for producing food is energy. So if a farmer had his own steam-driven or electric-driven or whatever from his own little nuclear plant, he wouldn't have a problem with manufacturing food. So this guy said, right, he's got the shits with all this, he's going to start telling the truth. So he went out and he'd take a bit of uranium with him and he'd eat it, put the Geiger counter on his tongue and that thing would go off the planet. Right? He said, but it's harmless. He said, nuclear is the same as the sun. You go out, you get too close to a nuclear reaction, you'll get burned. And you will get damage to your cells. But you don't go sticking your head in the middle of a furnace either. Right? If your wife's cooking a cake, you're not going to stick your head in there with it. So the same analogy. You handle it properly, you haven't got a problem. And he would walk around with plutonium in either pocket. He said, when you put them together, they get within a certain distance, it starts to give off a blue light, and then it's getting to the point where it's going to start to give off heat. So you pull them apart and the blue light goes away. So he'd put it in either pocket when he was designing the sizes of these things that he'd want for his experiments. And he'd go down the road, down the hallway to the machine department, and they'd be turning up the plutonium to the sizes that he wants in the cylinders, so they can put in and push them together for doing his test. And he was the man that put it all together. He says, it's a harmless thing, carry it around, you can eat it. Whoa, that's not a good idea. Then we come back to what's it all about? What's killing all the bloody fish along the coast of America? Well, there've been, when we was in Europe, driving from Scotland into England, I started to see in the distance a chemtrail. So I'm nudging a little sausage here, get the camera out and take a photograph of this. And she done a beautiful job of taking a photograph of her own face. She had the camera backwards. But in any case, that's neither here nor there. At one stage there, we lost count, but up to 40 at a time. We're starting early in the morning, we're about 6 in the morning, as we're driving down into England, and the massive amounts of chemtrails. And there's something in them that is so potent that people don't even know they're needing to look up. It doesn't ring a bell. I tested it, asking people over and over again, what do you think of the chemtrails? What? They didn't even know it was happening. So there's something in the chemtrails. Now when you get enough chemtrails, by the time midday comes along, the light is not getting through to you. People, especially pregnant women, need vitamin D, because if they don't have vitamin D from the sunlight, babies, when they grow up, will have bad teeth and other problems. But the baby requires vitamin D. So my joke years ago was, if you want vitamin D, lick a cat. Because what the cat fur picks up is the vitamin D from the sun. That's why a cat will lay out in the sun, picks up the vitamin D and then it licks it. It needs vitamin D to live. It's very important. So then they come up now with, oh, you can't go out in the sun because of the Earth's heating up and all the blah, blah, blah. You've got to put your sunblock on. So what that's doing is stop you getting vitamin D, so therefore you will get sick. You will get skin cancer. It's the other way around, because it's all bullshit. So, with all the chemtrails and the GMO foods in America, what happens with sewage treatment? It either is pumped out into the sea, for most cases along California and Oregon and so forth, and it poisons everything in the sea. So the first thing to go is the plankton. Next thing to go is the up the tree of life. You got the plankton, then you got the small fish and the shrimp and whatever, and the fish that eat them, and it goes up until you got the point today where there's no pelicans, there's no sea lions, they're all starving to death. There's no sardines. The report, now is this true? The report is that there is no sardines caught when there's trillions of sardines caught per year for the sardine fleets. Right? Yet you can go to the grocery store, you can still buy sardines. Right? So what's happening? Is it really the wave of plutonium and fallout coming from the skies that's raining down on America that's causing the problem? Doesn't appear to be so. Not according to the expert. That is this guy who was quite prepared to put his life on the line to talk about it. And he did. Very intelligent. You can tell when a person's talking the truth, you can tell it. Right? They're not bullshit artists. It's like this guy who says that the position of for the Nagasaki and all this kind of thing he was being very clever the way he did it all at the time when there was no calculators, and he's got this maths along with your arm. So he was a smart man. And he was the first one that I recognised many years ago. Can't recall even how I got onto, but I did see him. It was either in a film or it may be on the internet. I can't recall. But I thought, this guy has got it right. You can't set off the nuclear bomb. So therefore, the Samson option that the Jews are saying that they've got bombs in every city, and if you don't let us rule the world the way we want and recognise us as being the chosen people of God and all that kind of stuff, we're going to blow the world up. This is what Hitler said. Unless you stop the Jews, the world will be left a lifeless orb floating in the ether of space. Now, who's the most vilified man on earth? Hitler. And what did he do? He gave everybody a job, and even to the point where if a person got married, two people got married, and you can't be homosexual in Germany, right? He closed down Berlin, because it was the most obscene Sodom and Gomorrah city on earth, so he closed that down. So what was he actually giving people? Well, if you want a house, the government will build you the house, and if you have one child, you get a quarter of the value of the house off. If you have two children, you get half to it.
What it was a loan for the house over a 10-year period. If you have a child, then that eliminates 25% of the loan to the government. Second child, 50%. Third child, 75%. If you have 4 children, you do not owe the government anything for the house that you are living in.
I thought you must have had one of those hash cookies because you wouldn't say nothing.
Well, you know what's interesting? You know how we talk about things and then it ends up being in the measure or the numbers
like
or whatever.
Our biggest listeners, of course, is the Jews, the CIA, the ASIO, all the government officials, the Iranians, the Russians. They're all listening. What are we saying to the general public is what they want to be finding out about. And we're saying is don't worry about nuclear radiation fallout. It's caused by the GMO foods in America, which causes your gut to produce, what's it called?
Well, bacteria.
The bacteria in your stomach.
Becomes leaky gut syndrome.
Yep, leaky gut syndrome, which is the same as
Roundup.
Corn. You know, we get weeds, you put Roundup on the weeds and it kills it. That's what your gut is starting to produce in America. But it also goes into your brain and causes you to be a morons, right? Yeah. So Americans are morons, right? You don't even know you've been chemtrailed, and even if you do, you don't do nothing about it. And you've got Satanists, and forever you've had
34
Satanists.
million in the total population, which is...
Plus, you got Obama, who's a skull and bonesman, and his secret name is Undertaker. Hello? Then you got the idiot before him was skull and bonesman. All the top officials in America are skull and bonesman. All of the administration are Jews, right? When the English, their ships come back to port, they fly the skull and bones.
Now, what is more important?
I can't believe this shit.
The ultimate goal of all of this is the children. They are the pedophiles ruling the show throughout all governments, the monarchy, etc. It's about the children. They are stealing your children. You know that, and because tomorrow's the 24th, it's reminding me about the blockade that Andy's organising.
I said to Andy, form a Batman club.
Yeah.
Right, get your cricket bats out. Anyone who steals your children, find out who their names are, then go bash the bastards to death. Then you'll have it all. No one will be stealing your kids from now on.
It's to do with the, what are they, pedo-femmes, all of the...
lesbians now are taking over the world?
Lesbian pedophile creeps that are running the world. You've got Michelle, who is actually Michael.
Michelle Obama's a bloke.
Yeah.
A man.
All right, so that's what is operating. And there's an article about a journalist a British journalist who was investigating the pedophile ring, and she's turned up dead. So that's what it's all about. It's the children. As Yah says, he is here for the children. Well, so are they. They are after the children. It's to completely genocide the white race.
It's all to do with anyone who's remotely interested in having Jesus as their Lord. Now you've got all these different religions fighting each other, which is it's quite amusing to sit back and see the Jehovah's Witnesses fighting the Seventh-day Adventists, and they're all bastards. And then you've got the Mormons, they're bastards. And then there's another group fighting someone else. And then you've got this and that. And the Catholics, they're the worst bastards of all time. And of course the Pope, he's a child molester and he eats children and does this. The Pope Benedict is the only one in the world that I've been able to talk to who actually believes me. And when I pulled him up on a few points, no problem. You're the Lord.
He was there. He
He's
laid
humble.
it all down. Knowing Christ is back, now he can be corrected. What about this? What about that? Well, he became that child, offering himself up for correction, which is what none in the Western world have done.
I can't get the next door neighbours to do it. Right? I think you're a lunatic.
Oh,
Right,
they're
that's
deaf
right.
on that side, so don't even trouble.
How are we going with time?
We're out. It's over.
It's over, all right.
It's
There's
over.
the answer.
Good night.
Hasta la
Good day.
vista.
Goodbye.
So, it's the GMO foods, it's the human waste, the urine and crap that's going into the waters is killing off all of your plankton,
No.
which killing off your sardines, which killing off the larger fish, which kills off the bloody sea lions, which kills off the whales that work on plankton, right? That's what it's all about. It's not
the wheat.
radiation.
It's the wheat. Sherry sent a message, wheat belly. Just Google YouTube wheat belly and learn about the wheat. Don't
Wheat belly?
eat it. Wheat belly, yeah. Wheat belly. Google wheat belly. Do the rabbit hole digging on
So
wheat
the
belly.
alternative is me in charge of the world and ruling with a rod of iron so you won't ever again have this kind of bullshit. And why is that so? Because you are living in a hologram. You can look at and what you see in space and what they're reporting back from the Hubble, it's all bullshit. Because you put a bullet through your head, you're going to the realm from where you come. The soul leaves, the corpse dies and rots. The worms have a feast day. But your soul lives on up until now. That's ending. I'm here for the children. And they're going to be raised up. And when they're raised up to the perfect human being, we will duplicate the whole thing across the entire universe. There are lots of houses in my father's. And by the way, I am the father.
Okay.
There's something about that in the Bible, isn't there?
Yes.
My father's mansion, there's many houses.
My father's house, there are many mansions.
Something like that.
All right.
And they're quite cheap.
Hasta la vista.
If you have 4 kids, you get them for nothing.
Hasta la
German
vista.
idea.
Hasta la vista.
Is that German? No, that's
Spanish. Hasta la vista.
Spanish.
Hasta la vista.
How do you say it in Germany?
Oh.
Achtung, Heil Hitler!
Yeah.